to just close our final panel of the morning by talking a little bit about what some of the community tools and approaches are available. So as I mentioned before, my name is Jana Persky. I work for the State Office of Economic Development and International Trade, where I'm the Opportunity Zone Program Manager. And I'm joined on this panel with Tiana Patterson of Enterprise Community Foundation and Cara Kelly, who also works at OEDIT in the Minority Business Office. So as was previously mentioned, the Opportunity Zone is not actually a program. It's just an incentive that was written into the tax code. And you can go out and make Opportunity Zone investments without ever talking to me. So if without ever talking to anyone in the government, without ever applying for anything, without even right now really reporting on what you're doing. You just attach a form to your tax returns, and it's the information is kept between you and the IRS and is subject to audit. This is really exciting on one hand because it allows for private capital to move at market speed. It allows for, to eliminate some of the bureaucracy that can hold up and the friction that can hold up some of the other tax credit programs. But it's also a little bit scary for those of us interested in community development because it's a lot more difficult to understand, to control, to manage what's going on. So we're at the state are trying to build out a program to provide some of this support and to provide some of these guardrails. And we kind of see our work across three dimensions. The nomination process, which has already been completed, but I think important to recognize. The second is education, why we're all here today, spreading the word. And the third is investment facilitation. And this is all in support of the mission that you see up top there, which is to position Colorado as a leading destination for capital in ways that truly benefits communities. So really briefly, as I mentioned, the nomination process is completed now. All the zones have been certified by Treasury, and there is no opportunity to change them unless Congress reauthorizes the program. So I'll just preempt those questions about, can we redraw the borders? Can we switch a zone? Can we? They are set, and there's nothing we can do. And so we had to do this nomination process in 3 months. So as Mark mentioned, we woke up kind of right after the new year and had to do this. Despite that, I think we went through a pretty thorough and analytical process. We were thinking really about three factors when designating the zones. As a state, we were allowed to designate 25% of the eligible zones. We started with about 500, and that gets us to 126. And the three factors we were thinking about, the first was true economic distress and economic need. It was written into the statute that eligible zones had to be designated as distress, which is based on the income levels of the residents and the amount living in poverty. But that doesn't tell the whole story. For example, the areas around universities is often designated as low income because students tend to have lower incomes. But CU Boulder doesn't need an opportunity zone around its campus to stimulate investment there. So just making sure that we understood, truly what the need and the distress of communities was. The second is the ability to both attract and absorb private capital. So this is, there's no point in putting this incentive out in an area that just has nothing in it. There needs to be some sort of population and some sort of infrastructure that makes it interesting to investors. But it also needs to be able to absorb that private capital. And that, I think, is an important kind of context setting for our discussion today. Because, for example, like Rhino was eligible to be an opportunity zone. That area has seen tremendous growth over the past 10 years and doesn't need this incentive to continue to grow. And in fact, it might exacerbate some of the issues of displacement and gentrification there. That's also likely an issue in some of these zones in Aurora, some of these zones along Colfax, some of these zones in Park Hill. And so we tried to be thoughtful about where we place those, but we also recognize that these concerns still exist. And so that's why we're trying to think about ways to mitigate those concerns and make sure that the capital coming in is beneficial to communities and not harmful. And then the third is statewide equity. Along these similar lines, when you first sort of looked at the metrics of the most investable places or the most eligible places, 70 to 80% of those were in the Front Range on the urban corridor. But looking at our state, seeing the growth that this area has seen recently and some of the needs of the rural communities, it felt like for Colorado, this incentive would be more positive and more catalytic if we dispersed the zones throughout the rural areas. So we were pretty intentional about flipping that, and so it ended up about 40% of our zones now are in the Denver-Boulder area, and 60% of the zones are outside. And so you can see on the map here, if you go to choosecolorado.com/OZ, you can click around and zoom all the way into street level and see exactly where the zones are. But they're dispersed across the state. I think close to 45 counties have zones. There's opportunities from wind energy and other big projects out on the Eastern Plains to housing and job growth in the metro areas to some of the ski resort development or housing and oil and gas, other types of projects out on the western slope. So really briefly, we're continuing to do these sort of educational events, getting the word out about opportunity zones so people can understand how they can use this to benefit themselves and their communities. This was, we were out in Aurora a couple months ago. We've been in Denver. And the thing that I'll just flag here is, again, our website, choosecolorado.com/OZ, has a bunch of the articles written by experts like Mark and others. We have an email list for when Treasury releases additional regulations or when there's other events, we add that. And, I'd encourage you to reach out. I'm happy to answer, I'm already getting 2 or 3 calls a day on opportunity zones and happy to kind of continue to answer those questions. I think we've built a pretty good network of folks thinking about this from a whole bunch of different lenses. And so I'm happy to be kind of the connection point for those if I can't answer your question to find someone else that can because this is so new. And talking about facilitating investment, this whole program is about helping capital find investable opportunities. And we're working on both sides of this equation for sure, definitely talking to investors and trying to get the investor community engaged. But I would say we're doing more work on the investment opportunities side. And this is what I really want to emphasize today. There is a ton of capital out there right now. Just as like a small example, the city of Montrose in Colorado was featured in a Forbes article alongside Stockton and Newark about opportunity zones. A developer in Montrose, in the 2 weeks after that article was published, had 4 or 5 calls saying, what are the $50 million projects in Montrose? Well, if you know Montrose, there's not that many $50 million projects there. And so maybe that's not the right fit. But the point is that there is capital looking for places to land. And you can imagine that if Montrose is getting that type of attention from one feature in a Forbes article, then a place like Aurora, people are going to be coming here. People are going to be looking for places to put that capital. And what it's our job to do and what it's the community's job to do is to make sure that unfortunately, there's not too much that we can do to prevent certain types of investment, but what we can do is to promote and elevate the types of investment that will be beneficial to the community. So, if those are the ones, if we have well-organized projects that will both provide a return to the investor and provide a benefit to the community, and we make that easy for investors to find and to understand, then those types of projects will get the investment. But that takes a lot of work, and that's part of why we're here today, and just wanted to highlight a couple of the tools that we have available. The first is the community prospectus template. We're encouraging communities, and this is less of a concern in some of the Denver metro communities where there is a lot of data and kind of more obvious growth potential, I would say, but building a prospectus that both tells the high-level story of your community and why your community will provide a return to the investor, and then delving into the specific projects. These are the types of land that we have available, these are the types of projects we have available, and this is why it'll both benefit the community and you'll see a return. We have technical support grants available through DOLA, so it's a little bit of a gray area sometimes for some of the metro areas, but the areas outside the metro area definitely have eligibility for these funds to either help with the prospectus building or to help with if you have a particular project that your community is really interested in, not going all the way to negotiating that project, but thinking through what does the project structure look like? How can we bring it from, okay, we have housing, we have this plot of land that we want housing, please come invest, to we have this plot of land, we think it's well suited for 60 units, we need $10 million of equity, and that equity will see a 15% return because of X, Y, and Z. That's much easier for an investor to put capital into. So we have some grants available for that, and we also have pro bono consulting help for projects that are, the community is particularly excited about that we can connect folks to. And then the final thing is we're building out a website that will have two functions. The first is opportunity zone marketing, telling the story at the state level, at the regional level, and then at the community level, why you should invest in Colorado. And we'll be looking to communities to kind of build out that localized story, and that will be the library of the prospectuses. And then a database where both, we call it a dating site for investment. The investors can upload their profiles, and then people with projects can identify, can share the information about their project, and you can search and find each other. So that'll be live hopefully in a couple weeks after Thanksgiving, but we will be updating that through our website and our email list, so make sure you kind of stay tuned to those. So yeah, this is a little bit, we'll talk more about this in the afternoon, but this is what a prospectus is, making sure it's telling the full story of the community opportunities and risks, and not just a pure marketing document. For example, some of the more rural communities have said, oh yeah, we have this great marketing brochure that shows our riverfront and our nice people, and that's great, but that's not what's going to get an investor to invest. So just taking to that next level. I mentioned the grants that are available. This is kind of a preview of the afternoon, but just encouraging communities to think through, what do you need, and then what do you have available, and how can you marry that into particular projects that will both see a return and benefit the community. So I just want to close. I know we're getting close to lunch, so I have some GIFs or GIFs, whichever you prefer here, that I think wake people up and tend to be the only thing that people remember. But the first is to be proactive. The reality is that the zones are designated now, and so investors are going to find them. So if we want this investment to be beneficial to the community, communities have to be proactive and identifying and elevating the projects that they want and fighting for that seat at the table. Otherwise, this investment will just happen to you and not with you. Related to that is that urgency is key. As we've talked about, to achieve maximum benefit of this incentive, you have to invest by the end of 2019. Now, that's not when we think the investment will stop. That's when you only lose a small percentage of the benefits, that 5% bump up. But there is going to be a lot of capital looking to move in the next 12 months, and communities that are particularly well organized will have first mover advantage, and they'll have the ability to attract that capital. The third is to think like an investor. We've heard people say, the opportunity zone incentive won't make a bad project good, it'll make a good project better. These still have to be projects that will help an investor see a return in order to attract that capital. So thinking through what you as a community can do to make that investment more attractive, and how to reach out to them. And which is related to this next one, which is to layer on additional programs and incentives. And this goes both ways. So there are incentives that communities can add that make projects more attractive. This is a hot button, but it's something that means a lot to developers but doesn't necessarily cost a community that much money. Fast tracking permitting so that it's easier to hit that substantial improvement in 30 months. There's also other things you can do, like layering on, as we talked about, with new markets tax credits, with enterprise zones, things that make these projects more attractive. But then on the flip side, if it's an attractive enough project, a community can layer on some sort of demands or asks that make the project more beneficial to the community. So something like, if you have this plot of land that you're willing to donate to a housing project, you can set the stipulation that 20% of that has to be, affordable housing, or that there has to be a child care facility included within it, or that, the developers have to hire local contractors. There are kind of different ways you can play with this, that as you raise the attractiveness of a project, you can also raise the benefits that the community can gain. And finally, opportunity zones are just one tool in the toolkit. We're going to talk, I think Tiana and Cara are also going to talk about some of the other tools that are out there. It's not an incentive that's going to solve every problem facing your community, and not every project is going to be well suited for the opportunity zones, or the opportunity zone incentive, but it is a tool, and it's a really powerful tool, and we think that with a little bit of work, we can use this tool to really benefit our communities. So we'll talk more in the afternoon about how and exactly, communities want to structure these conversations and where they want to go. But for now, I'm going to pass it over to Tiana Patterson of Enterprise and talking a little bit about the work and the tools that they have in this space.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tiana. Hi, my name is Tiana Patterson. I am the State and Local Policy Director for Enterprise Community Partners. So really quick, I think first off, Enterprise has no affiliation to the car rental company. Who we are is a nationwide nonprofit dedicated to building thriving communities using financial tools, investments, and policy and advocacy to accomplish those goals. And when we talk about the tools, as Jana mentioned, one of the ones that Enterprise has recently created is called Opportunity 360. And this is a free online tool that allows users to plug in your address, and it'll come up with a census tract, a report based on your census tract. And it talks about our 5 areas of opportunity, which are housing stability, education, health and wellness, economic security, and mobility. So, for example, this would be, it also puts out an opportunity index score. So with that, it gives you an example of how you compare to the state, the region, and the country based on those 5 factors. So I chose a census tract here in Aurora, and the index score came up with an opportunity zone index score based on 11. That's based on the health of community, the diabetes rate, the literacy rate, the number of people in poverty, and it gives you a score for each piece of the index. So this isn't a complete report. It actually spits out about 40 or 50 pages, which I'm sure you did not want in my PowerPoint presentation. But it's a really interesting and innovative tool that we encourage everyone to use. And you can go to opportunity360.com. And we encourage everyone to just play around with it and see how you can find it useful. So, and also with using the Opportunity 360 tool, we've thought a lot about the role that state governments can play, the role that local governments can play in leveraging opportunity zones to get to what you need in your community. So when we think about investments, we think it's really important that before an opportunity zone is deployed in your area, that you as a county government or a community think about what your guiding principles are and apply them to the opportunity zones, particularly if a government owns land in an opportunity zone. That gives a chance to more thoughtfully guide investment than you would typically have. So within Enterprise, we jumped out in front of opportunity zones pretty quickly. Some of you may have seen or heard from Rachel Riley Carroll, who is our Director of Impact Investment at Enterprise. And so along with her being really excited about opportunity zones and us figuring out if Enterprise could launch one, we also started thinking about what other levers needed to be pulled at the same time so that cities don't feel like this is happening, or cities and communities don't feel like this is just happening to them, but that they're working in partnership to get something into the community that will be beneficial to everyone. So, up here we have, I think in particular what I'd like to call out is leverage the role of local community development financial institutions and other community intermediaries to promote financial literacy for impacted residents. Definitely create state or city-run opportunity funds, and think about how to require investments to stay in the locality or the state. And I think, particularly when we talk about how to ensure that residents benefit from this, I want to think about one, that cities create smart development policies that, you know, really require not just investment by investment of if you buy land, 20% of this should be affordable, but thinking about creating a citywide policy like inclusionary zoning, or, you know, align other city or county resources with opportunity investment types. And then also, you know, thinking about if a fund is going to be deployed in your area, that you think about the tenant themselves, or I'm sorry, the person themselves. So tenant protections, eviction prevention tools, and tenant right of first refusal tools, rapid rehousing, housing trust funds. These are the things that if an opportunity fund comes into your community, that you're already prepared for it because you have policies in place that are meant to help mitigate gentrification and displacement in a particular community. So I know that was pretty quick and dirty. I am happy to answer any other questions and talk more about it. My email address is in the speaker packet that you have, and happy to talk more about it. Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. Almost good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Cara Kelly. I am also in the Office of Economic Development and International Trade for the state. I'm working with Jana. I am the program manager for our minority business office. So Jana asked me to come here today to share some of the resources we can offer. Just want to let you know they don't have anything to do with opportunity zones, but we figured a lot of you might be small business owners or know small business owners in your community, and we want to let you know of some resources that small business owners can take advantage of right now from our office until the regulations around investing in a business, individual business through opportunity zones are more clarified. So that's what I'm going to do today. It's a really short presentation, but if you guys have any questions or you want more information, I have set up a table right outside the doors. So during lunch or after lunch, you can stop by. There's some fun freebies there. There's some brochures. I have my business cards out there. So if you guys have any more questions, or if you want any Spanish materials, we have a lot of Spanish printed toolkits and guides and things like that. So I will just quickly give you a rundown of what we do. Again, we're located in OEDIT, is what it's called. And it's funny, our motto has been for a while, the O is for opportunity in MBO, Minority Business Office. And this is our mission, so I'm just gonna push this up a little bit. So, no, it's okay. So we help women-owned, minority-owned, and veteran-owned businesses get certified as such. So get certified as a minority-owned business, as a, let's say, service-disabled, veteran-owned business, as a women-owned small business. We help you figure out if it makes sense for your business, what the benefits are, help you apply for the certification, and then once you have that certification, we can help you leverage it to win contracts both in the government and on the private side. So that's our bread and butter, and we offer free one-on-one consulting across the state for all of this. So real quick, certification is essentially just a designation to show to especially government agencies, but also corporations that have supplier diversity efforts, that you are minority-owned or women-owned, things like that. Almost every type of business can get certified because almost every type of business can sell to the government. It's the largest buyer in our country, and oftentimes people think, you know, I have a cupcake business, how could I sell to the government? But most government agencies have cafeterias and they would buy your cupcakes. You can almost always sell to the government, and it's a great way to stabilize your business by having that B2G source of revenue in addition to whatever else you're doing. Just a couple exceptions who can't get certified, like a restaurant or retail shop, breweries, and they can still work with the government. It's just usually the certifications are going to be beneficial for larger contracts, whereas an agency might have catering provided by a restaurant, but it's not going to be those big contracts where they're looking for a certified business. So this map is on everyone's table. It's really complex, which is why we offer the consulting. There's a lot of certifications that you can get. So even if you say, oh, I'm minority owned, what certification should I get? I will say, well, do you want to work mostly with federal agencies, or do you already work with federal agencies? If so, I would direct you to this SBA, the Small Business Administration, to get certified in one of their options. If you work mostly with municipal agencies, you would get certified through the City and County of Denver. If you live in a different city or area in Colorado, you will still get certified with Denver because they're the only city that actually does the certifying. They're the only one that has the capacity to have an entire department devoted to that. So the city of Fort Collins, let's say, would accept the city of Denver's certification. Also, on the private sector, if you say, well, I work mostly with large corporations, then I could connect you with someone from either the Mountain Plains Minority Supplier Development Council, which is a mouthful. They are part of a national organization, and included with that certification is a network. It's really helpful. They'll connect you with large companies that are looking to work specifically with minority-owned companies. Same thing with the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. There's a local rep here, Ellie, that I would connect you with, but it's a great network to get into and get certified if you want to work with larger companies as well. And then the Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce also has recently developed their own certification, which is awesome. On your map and up on the screen, there's just a couple of partners that we work with. We work with the Small Business Development Center Network a lot. So if any of you have ever worked with them, they're an amazing resource. And they have 14 main centers across the state where you can get free business consulting on anything and everything from business planning to marketing, taxes, legal. So we work with them a lot, and we offer our expertise for specifically minority, women, and veteran. But if people are looking for just general business consulting, then we'll send them to the SBDC network. Finally, just to give you an example, the federal government has a minimum of around 23% of all their contracting dollars to be spent with their certification, with their certified businesses. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, and a lot of contracts will have set-asides specifically for these certified businesses. So it will either decrease the pool of competition for you, it'll level the playing field, or you might be the only certified company that can do the type of work that a certain federal agency is looking for. So it's a really awesome opportunity. So these are just a couple steps I would recommend taking before you get certified, but we can help you with all this. It's just registering in a couple of different systems. Of course, registering your business with the Secretary of State. And I would recommend everyone, if you're interested in this, just go to our website, mbocolorado.com. You're going to find all this information and more. We have one grant program right now, which is specifically for exporting, and it's only for minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned. You don't have to be certified for that. But you'll find all the information up there, and also, again, I have my resource table outside, so if you guys want any more information or you do want to sign up for that consulting, you can come talk to me. And this is our team. My director is Rosie McDonough, if any of you guys know her. And then those are our consultants. And 2 out of 3 of them are bilingual in Spanish and English. Okay, thank you.
Our final speaker will be Stephanie Copeland, who leads economic development for the state. She's a member of Governor Hickenlooper's cabinet and has been a leading force on helping Colorado organize its opportunity zones.
Thanks very much. I'm going to just take a couple minutes. Lunch is just logistically, lunch is outside, and I'm going to hold you up until, so I will not hold you up to get there. But two things I wanted to talk about. One is the goal of today is really, again, to impart information, but more importantly, look for ways that communities and those on the ground and developers can look at projects that will attract market rate investment, but also create opportunity and access for these communities. So we think there are two ways capital is going to flow. One, it's going to flow to the obvious places that where deals are going to flow anyway, and it's going to potentially accelerate displacement and gentrification in not positive ways, or it's going to ignore certain communities because capital can't find the right kind of projects to create a return for itself. The uniqueness about this program is that it is all driven by people seeking returns and using an incentive to help them juice, that's a very technical term, juice their returns. And so what we found from the very beginning was, both in our designation process and also, is that we wanted this incentive to be at least possibly catalytic. So we weren't trying to designate places that were eligible that were already on a path. And we weren't trying to designate places that were eligible that had zero investment opportunity. We were trying to find the Goldilocks place. Where we did designate, especially in the urban corridor, it's so vitally important for me that we help to equip you to actually propose projects, working with the community to propose projects where capital can be attracted, but also has a positive input on the constituents of that community. Because I'm certain that 10 years from now, when we look at many of the opportunity zones, the average income levels will be better, but will the average income levels of those that were living there be better, which is what I really want to see happen. That's the part that this is meant to be helping. What it does is put a lot of burden and stress on the communities to do things they're not normally used to doing, which is building investment prospectuses, figuring out how to layer different methods of capital into a project that will allow for these equity investors to be attracted to your project. And we are making this up as we go. So let me be clear, there is no formulaic approach. Why we're trying to get together on this is so that we can kind of align in our expectations and figure out how we look at creative ways to leverage the zone and to bring capital in that normally would not naturally seek us or seek us in the way we want it to in the community. Last thing I'll say is, yesterday we had our Economic Development Commission meeting, and just so you know how involved our Economic Development Commission is, we have one of our commissioners here with us today, Benita Duran, who has done great work in the community, and they approved funding for our office to create a small program team that will help work with local communities to both get technical resources and more education and connecting the dots around the state. Jana Persky, who is running the program on behalf of the state right now, is a fantastic point of contact around that as we form this small office, but we are setting this office up for the next 3.5 years to take advantage of when the activity is going to flow. So please know, if you're thinking about, I need access, if I'm going to try to put a project on the shelf that I want to try to attract investment around, I'm going to need people that understand how to financially structure those. I'm going to need people that can help me with legal terms, and I'm going to need people that can help me really just kind of quarterback that. We put some funds together to help you resource that. And we don't want that to be in the way of what you're doing, but we want that to just come in behind you and support you. So I'm really, really appreciative for you taking this much time. This is a work in progress. That's a good thing. The bad thing is we've got really little time, because it's a very, very, very perishable incentive that gets less attractive the longer we wait. So thanks for being here today. Please feel free. I think we're going to grab lunch, and then there's a room next door coming back in here, and then we'll break up at about 12:30. Is that right? By 12:50, come back in here and we'll start the breakout sessions where we really start to try to brainstorm around how we could put kind of an RFP out around projects that we want to see funded. Thanks everyone.